All right, we are so excited to have a good friend of the Tennessee Aquarium join us, Dr. Zeb Hogan. You know Zeb, you've seen his show Monster Fish on Nat Geo Wild, and Zeb, it is so great to see you again.
Hi, Tom. Good to be back.
You have a show that fits right in with this theme, Monster Fish. How did that get started?
We started filming Monster Fish a long time ago now. I think we started in 2007. I was working as just finished my PhD doing work in Thailand on the Mekong River. And I started working with a very big catfish, the Mekong giant catfish, which can get up to 10 feet long, weigh up to 650 pounds. And I was working on the giant catfish for my PhD research, and a journalist heard about the work, they heard about the fish, and then sort of one thing led to another, and we ended up doing a TV show with National Geographic about the Mekong giant catfish.
And because at the time, nobody really knew what the biggest freshwater fish in the world was. And you started kind of a quest to see what that was.
Yeah, so in 2005, fishermen in Thailand, I was working up in northern Thailand, Golden Triangle area, and the fishermen up there caught a 646-pound giant catfish. And when they caught that fish, I went back and looked at the records of fish they'd caught previously, did a little bit of research, and I couldn't find a record of a larger freshwater fish anywhere in the world. And so it started, my work for the last 15 years or so started with this very simple question: what is the world's largest freshwater fish? And what I thought would have a simple answer, I've actually spent the last 15 years of my life researching that question to try to learn all about the world's largest freshwater fish.
And, that's monster fish. They're monstrously huge. And that's a really cool program. You've had so many neat experiences that you've shared with the world. Millions of people have watched your show. But I want to talk about one in particular because it fits the theme so well, and that's the vampire fish. I don't think many people even know about this critter, and it's scary.
Yes, the vampire fish is, it's actually a fairly common fish in some rivers in South America.
Thankfully not here in the United States.
down where I was working, the local name was Payara. And it's a fish that gets about 3 or 4 feet long, and it has two very long fangs that project out of the lower part of its jaw. And these fangs can be 1 to 2, maybe even 3 inches long. So it's a very fearsome looking fish. It's a very scary looking fish that you actually see. We were, when I saw them, we were fishing in Guyana, and they're actually a very common fish down there. You see them all the time.
Are they aggressive?
You know, yeah, they're predators. They use those big fish to hunt. But South America, one of the things that surprised me down there is that there are so many predatory fish that I wasn't used to in the US or even in Asia. So in South America, in a lot of rivers, you have piranha, which are biters. They'll take kind of chunks out of flesh, like you might bite an apple. And then there are kind of chompers, or this big fish called a wolffish that has conical shaped teeth, almost like a dog, and it'll take bites and then twist.
Ouch.
And and the payara has these long fangs it uses to spear its prey. It'll spear the prey with those long fangs and then flip the prey around in its mouth. It also has a very long tongue. It'll flip the fish around in its mouth and then swallow it. And then you also have freshwater stingray and electric eels. So there are all these different kinds of predatory fish down in South America that, while they're not dangerous to humans, they are predators, and you do have to be careful if you're handling them.
Yeah. So tell me about freshwater stingrays, because they're one of the creatures that people are surprised at when they come to the Tennessee Aquarium and see our Australian whiprays and how big they get. But you've seen a species that gets even more massive.
Yeah. So most people probably don't realize this, but some of the largest freshwater fish in the world are actually freshwater stingray. So you have the giant freshwater stingray in Southeast Asia, in Thailand, where I work. It can get up to 500 or 600 pounds, about 7 or 8 feet in diameter and 15 feet long. You have the freshwater whipray that it sounds like you have now at the Tennessee Aquarium. Those also get very large. They're native to northern Australia. I've heard stories of them getting 6 feet in diameter. I'm not sure how big they are in your
Pretty
tank
close
now.
to that. They're pretty
It's been a
close.
while. It's been a while since I've seen them. But yeah, they'll get big even in captivity. And then there's another species called the short-tailed river ray, which may actually be South America's largest freshwater fish. It's a stingray. I've seen them up to about 400 pounds. I've seen photos, look maybe 500, 600 pounds. Those freshwater stingray in South America may get even bigger than Arapaima and the Goliath catfish.
When you came on one of your visits, you actually went out on a lake sturgeon release with us, and you were very complimentary of the aquarium's work to save the sturgeon in this part of the world. And at one point you said, this is an example that other world leaders might look to as a way to preserve and protect these living fossils that can live more than 100 years in our rivers.
Yeah, I was really impressed with the Lake Sturgeon program. And I think the Tennessee Aquarium and all of us who are working in this field really have a role to play in terms of being ambassadors for these fish. A lot of, the fish, they're in our freshwaters, lakes and rivers, they're underwater. A lot of times people might not see them except for anglers. So I think biologists and the Tennessee Aquarium and all of us have a big role to play to try to increase awareness about these fish. And then the Tennessee's program to actually raise lake sturgeon and release them into the rivers around the aquarium is absolutely incredible. And lake sturgeon can live, from what I understand, over 100 years. So the Tennessee Aquarium, I know you're going out with school kids and going out with local scientists and stuff. You might be putting fish in the river that your grandkids or great grandkids might see 100 years from now.
Yeah, it's so exciting, and it was so much fun to be out with you on that particular day. All right, let's get silly for a moment. If you had to have a cage match between the vampire fish and the electric eel, who would win?
I think the electric eel would win. Some of these fish that look really fearsome, they're really good at doing one thing. And the vampire fish, it's dark on top, light underneath. I think it's a kind of a really good ambush predator. It attacks very quickly, but the electric eel would see it coming and just zap it, and it would be all over. So.
Okay, speaking of being zapped, I think you were actually zapped, and maybe your cameraman too, when you were filming in the Amazon basin.
Yeah, so we were filming, and we were filming a show on electric eel, and no one had been shocked yet, and we didn't really know what it felt like. And we were filming in an area, all these areas we were filming were always in about waist deep water, looking for eels, filming eels. And all of a sudden, I looked back and the cameraman had fallen over into the water. And luckily we caught him before he went in the water all the way and the camera went in the water. But he was stunned, he was confused. And it took us a while to even figure out what happened. We were in this river full of electric eels, and he must have gotten too close to one and it shocked him. And I felt the shock through rubber gloves. And one of the pairs of gloves that I had must have had a hole in the glove or something. And it's so difficult. It's so difficult to describe, but I could feel the power, the shock of that fish coming through the gloves, and it was uncomfortable. So I can only imagine what it feels like to receive a full shock.
And very quickly, you documented the fact that the bigger the eel, the bigger the shock.
Well, so when we were filming, we went down with an electric eel expert, and he recorded the strongest or most powerful shock ever recorded generated from electric eel. And he sent me an email last year and said that shock that we recorded is now in the Guinness Book of World Records.
Wow. All right. That's awesome. Finally, is there a fish that you haven't met that you would love to meet?
I would love to see some of the really big sturgeon. Beluga sturgeon is a fish that moves between freshwater and saltwater. It occurs in Europe and in Russia. I would love to see one of those fish. That is the largest fish that sometimes occurs in freshwater. I think they get up to about 4,000 pounds, 20 feet long. I would love to see a beluga sturgeon. I've never seen a big one. I would love to see a Chinese paddlefish in the wild. Unfortunately, Chinese paddlefish may now be extinct, but that was a fish that I went to China in 2008. That was a fish I would have loved to see.
Zeb, thank you so much for joining us. Is there any way that folks can follow you on Facebook, and besides the Wonders of the Mekong Facebook group, is there another?
Well, I think that the easiest way to follow me these days is on the Wonders of Mekong Facebook page. I also, occasionally still filming and still doing videos. So, just keep an eye out. And I'm still working mostly in Cambodia, but I would say Wonders of the Mekong Facebook page is the best place.
Yeah, and we hope to see you back in Chattanooga someday. The invitation is always open.
Yeah, I'd love to come back. Thank you.